back to another YouTube video. Been a little while since we've done this. Now, the UK is currently back in another lockdown situation, which means that we are going to be having no access to the gyms till at least the 3rd of December. So they say. Some sources saying it's going to be longer. We'll try and keep the politics at bay. I will say I don't see why the gyms should shut, and I think the research supporting gyms staying open is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So it's well worth, guys, staying optimistic and signing the petitions that are online. Okay, they might not revoke the decision, but the more pressure they get to do so, the more it might happen and we can get kind of what we want and what we need. Okay, just take that Liverpool example where they were tier 3 and they were going to shut the gyms down, and then all the Liverpudlians and everyone rallied round to get the petitions, and they actually revoked their decision. So it just shows you guys the power in numbers and mass support. Anyhow, for now, it means you're going to be outdoors. This is a great time to train with rings, on bars, with just your body weight. Even if you've got a garage setup, you don't have to be a calisthenics athlete. You might have a garage setup where, you know, you're forced to train outside in the cold. So this video is going to help you. I've come up with 3 things to consider when it comes to training outdoors and in the cold. Obviously, I've been out in the cold a fair few times in my career, if you can call it that. One winter between 2016 and 2017, I actually did the whole winter out in the freezing cold. And while I wouldn't recommend it again, I did that by choice. It certainly put hairs on the chest and was character building. Obviously, the situation right now is a bit different because we're kind of forced to do it, whereas back then it was by choice and stubbornness. But the point is, throughout the years, I've done a lot of training outdoors with slightly higher level stuff. And along the way, I've learned some things that maybe I wouldn't do now as opposed to doing them then. So I've kind of been forced to learn from my hardships and mistakes. So factor number 1 that we want to consider: intensity. One thing you need to do when you're training outdoors in this cold weather is sensibly scale down the intensity of whatever it is you're doing. What that means, simple way: reduce the load and increase the reps a little bit. So don't work in these crazy low rep ranges that force long rest periods. Just because it's cold, you're not going to stay warm, your performance will be worse, and your risk for injury is just definitely higher than it would be in a hot gym. These are facts, okay? And I've been there myself, trying to force 2 or 3 rep sets. I did it earlier this year, actually, at the end of March. I was out on a park, stubbornly following my program like a slave, trying to do the reps that I should on archer chin-ups. So it's like a unilateral chin-up variation. And what it did is I don't want to say tore, because I don't think it was a tear, but it was definitely a strong strain to my teres minor on my left side, and it left me unable to pull up for 8 weeks earlier this year. Miserable experience, not good, all for the sake of forcing the issue. What I should have done in hindsight, chose a progression level that was slightly lower and bumped the reps up a little bit. So instead of working in the 3 rep range, I could have maybe worked in the 5 rep range and just reduced the rest a little bit. Or, better still, just take the day off, and if the weather's better next time, or you're feeling a little bit better, come back. You know, you have tomorrow. There is always tomorrow with this stuff, guys. It doesn't have to be instant. It's a longer process. So just keep that in mind. The intensity needs to be scaled, okay? Number 2, so factor 2, is going to be warm-ups. So shitty warm-ups versus effective warm-ups. So there's 2 sides of the spectrum here. You've got the guys that turn up at the park, do a couple of arm circles, and then start pulling muscle ups, and then wonder why they feel like their rotator cuff's torn or is going to blow at any point. And then you've got the guys that are ultra cautious, that go on a 5k run before they even do their dynamic drills. They take a 30-minute run, then they come along, they do 15 minutes of dynamic stretching, then they go and do another 15 minutes of super high rep, low like, you know, neurological demand exercises before that, and then they do their workout. So a whole hour's gone by before they actually get started, and then they wonder why they've got no power and are mentally drained and just want to call it a day. What we like to do, or what I like to do, or what I found works well: don't do the dynamic stretching and the mobilizations until you've done a more localized warm-up. So elevate the core temperature. You can do this in the form of running, but if you're training upper body and everything else, I like to do it in circuit fashion. So what we've been doing that works very well is doing like a 4 or 5 exercise circuit that hits the major patterns: vertical pull, vertical push, horizontal pull, horizontal push, and maybe a stability exercise like a handstand or a ring support hold. And then working from like 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 rep, and then 2 rep, 1 rep down, and then everyone just goes and flows and follows each other. By the time you get to the 3rd round, the blood's pumping, you're warm, you're ready, you're firing, and everything's good. That works a treat. Once you've done that, then you can start doing your arm circles, your dynamic mobilizations, and the more specific drills when your core temperature's higher. You'll get a lot more out of it, and when you come to your first work sets, you'll feel so much better. So do keep that one in mind, guys. Awesome. So factor 3, the final factor that we're going to be looking at today, is snobby expectations. So we don't want to have our expectations too high. It's very easy to think that we are Superman and that we're invincible to cold and conditions, when really you're just a human organism that is very responsive to its environment. And when the environment isn't optimal, you're up against it. I've been a victim of this. I think, oh well, fuck it, I still want to get exactly what I should be capable of all the time. But outdoors in this kind of climate, with the lack of daylight, the lack of heat and everything else, to think you're not going to be affected by that is naive, okay? So one thing you want to do is just drop down your expectations ever so slightly. Yeah, so don't think that it has to be a PR day all the time. Good, honest work done accumulatively over a time span will still improve you. You could sit at home and do nothing and you will be a lot worse off. You're still doing more than most. So really keep this in mind. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. That is the key takeaway here that I have learned. So yeah, lower expectations is the last one. So to recap, 3 things. Number 1, intensity. Make sure it's scaled appropriately and be a little bit more modest with it. Avoid low rep ranges and long rest periods because you're just going to freeze and get cold. 2, ideal warm-ups. Get the blood pumping and the core temperature high before you do anything in these conditions and you'll feel better for it. And number 3, manage your expectations. Make sure your expectations are not extremely lofty and unrealistic, otherwise you're just setting yourself up to fail. Brilliant. So with that said, guys, I have linked an article down below where I've written a post about this where I go into a little bit more detail if you like reading as opposed to watching a video. That's awesome. And also, I'd love you to get involved and weigh in on your opinions down below. So what do you think? Do you like training outdoors in winter? Is it something you won't do? Does the cold get you? Or do you have a specific go-to strategy? I'd love to know your thoughts. So yeah, get in touch below, guys. If you like the video, please like it, share it if you think it will help anyone, and subscribe to the channel because I really want to start posting more and more content for you. Thanks again, guys. Have yourself a great, safe week ahead training, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.